EU leaders are meeting in Brussels to try and hammer out a deal on energy and climate policy. Specifically, they're trying to work out by how much EU members should reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. The results of the summit will have a big impact on industry and consumers, both in Europe and beyond. With me to talk through the hopes and the pitfalls is Pilita Clark, the FT's environment correspondent. So Pilita, what's at stake in the summit?
Well, there's a huge amount at stake. Basically, what's agreed is going to set the shape of energy and climate policy across the EU for the next 15 years. At the moment, the EU is operating under a framework or a set of guidelines that were set nearly 7 years ago. They only went up to 2020. So what they're agreeing on, or what they're trying to agree on at the moment, is a new framework that will take the block up to 2030.
We've heard a lot of complaints from business in recent months about onerous and expensive environmental legislation. How difficult, how ambitious is this 40% target that the EU is looking at?
Well, that depends on whom you talk to. A lot of business groups and some industry groups will argue that that's actually very ambitious. But in fact, the EU's environmental agency advisors have said that the 2020 targets that we're already existing, are going to be kind of overshot by the time we get to 2020, and that they were supposed to reduce emissions by 20% from 1990 levels by 2020. They're actually going to be reduced by as much as 24%, officials believe. So the argument is that 40% is actually just a minimum that should be agreed on at this summit, and that actually, if even under business as usual scenarios, it's going to be met quite easily.
Does a weak economy in Europe make it harder or easier for companies to reach these targets?
Well, it depends what sort of company you are. Depends if you're a big emitter or if you are a goods and services company. But the broader problem with getting agreement here is that you have countries such as Poland, which are quite coal dependent, and are very concerned that an aggressive target is going to raise energy prices by substantial amounts there. So they're looking for some sort of compensation from the other countries that are not as dependent on coal. And that is being discussed here. In fact, there's been a number of proposals being put forward to try to compensate Poland and other Eastern European countries. What we're seeing is a lot of horse trading going on, a lot of debate. Poland's actually saying that they're prepared to veto the 40% target, which would be a really big deal, because this summit is not just going to be agreeing something important for the European Union. It's also going to be the first time that the world is going to see what a set of large economies are going to agree in the lead up to a big global climate deal that's due to be agreed in Paris at the end of next year. So if Europe, which has traditionally been a standard bearer for countries that want to see a tough global deal, if Europe stumbles at this block and looks as though it's not going to agree on a reasonably aggressive series of greenhouse gas emission reduction targets, then that's going to send a message to the rest of the world that, oh, hey, you know, what's going on here? What's the shape of the Paris deal going to look like?
So they're very much bargaining over money with the Poles, essentially.
That's right, there's that, but plus Poland's not the only potential blocker here. Spain and Portugal are also concerned because they want the deal to include a measure that would allow a lot more interconnection, a lot more sales of electricity generated in one country into an adjoining or neighbouring country. They have huge amounts of renewable energy, they have a surplus in some regions, and so they're keen to get that sold. So they're holding out and saying that they want to see that being part of the deal, or they may block it as well.
Pilita, tell me succinctly, if Europe does manage to get a deal here, what does that do to the global climate debate? Does that provide momentum?
Well, it depends what sort of deal. Some countries, the UK and Germany in particular, are saying that if a 40% target is agreed, it should be made conditional in the global climate talks. In other words, Europe should be able to say, we're going to agree to 40% at a minimum, but if larger emitters, China, the US, the largest and second largest respectively, if they agree to more aggressive reductions, then Europe will agree to raise that 40% target. Now, Poland, not unexpectedly, is saying that shouldn't be part of the deal at all. So, depending on what's decided in Brussels, it could make the difference between a tough or less tough global climate deal in Paris at the end of next year.
Great. So we'll see if Europe, again, moves to the forefront of the climate fight or not. Thanks very much, Pilita.
Thanks, Josh.